there we go. Alright. Yay! Okay. So yeah, basically what we've got is a black and white bitmap that this was scanned in as. And this, what you do is you set it in the scanner settings. I can actually show you where it is. It's different depending on what scanning software you have, but for the most part there will be an option. I hope you can read this. Okay. There you go. Now right here, it says color mode, black and white. You have color, grayscale, or black and white. Setting to black and white will save it as a bitmap. And anywhere that's a solid black or past a certain threshold will be scanned in as a black pixel. Anything else will be a white pixel. Doing that will give you a perfectly clean scan as long as your line art is clean, as long as you don't have mostly sketches. If you've inked it and you've cleaned up the pencil enough to where it's not going to pick it up, like if you use a blue pencil, for example, like a non-photo blue, then the scanner won't see it. All it'll see is the inked line art. And then you'll get a clean scan, which comes into here, and you can get close up as close as you want to, and you can see there's no gray edges. It is a solid pixelated black edge when you get close enough in. So now what you're going to want to do, let me load this back up here. Okay. Let's create a layer. Here's the layer window. Create a new layer here by clicking the button, and then set it to multiply. After doing that, make sure the layer is selected, and if you go over to the tool set, let me move this over here so you can see it. First off, you're going to want to adjust it, change the mode to grayscale first, and then the RGB color, which will let you do a full color image. So let's say I'm coloring her hair, I don't know, just grabbing a color, red. By setting the layer to multiply, you can color directly over the image, and it won't cover up the line art. The line art will still show through when you do color. This is for flat colors. So by doing that, you can actually just draw in where the hair color is going to be. Just cover up all the little gaps and stuff. Obviously, I'm not going to keep her hair red. This is just to show an example. And then you choose the paint bucket, and as long as on the top there's a menu here, you can't see it on the camera barely, but there's a button here that says all layers. Make sure that's clicked, and then when you click in here, it will read the image. The paint bucket will read the image as a flat image. So even if it's on its own layer, just clicking anywhere in that area will fill it in like a paint bucket. So it saves you from having to do that whole selection tool. This is a much faster, a much more streamlined way of doing it. And then if you need to clean up where you just put in, if there's any little areas that don't get filled in, just switch back to the paintbrush, draw right over top of it, and there you go. And you're good to go. It's real quick. And see, if I turn off the background layer and it's just this, and then I fill in with a paint bucket, you get the whole thing. But if I turn the background layer back on and then I fill in with the paint bucket, you get that. That's what the all layers tool does. Or the all layer setting. It's not a tool, it's a setting, but you get the idea. So anywho, there's all that. Well, I'll just close that as you. Let me make a couple posts real quick. See if I can get people's attention here. Hold on a second. A little slow start to the tutorial. It's actually under, when you select the paint bucket, the top bar will appear as it'll have anti-alias, contiguous, all layers, different boxes you can check for that tool. And by changing the tool that's selected, that top bar will always change. So it's just the options for the paint bucket. There's one that says all layers, and it'll just change it so that you can actually, do things and not have to worry about it. Okay. Crazy amounts of stuff. Alright. Let's get some music going here. What's good to listen to? Best game music. Yeah, Adium? Yeah, Adium is good stuff. Great chat program. Alright. Just a few minutes. Beep 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 beep. Yes, just a moment. Trying to crank through this as fast as I can here. Okay. That should work. Danny, what's up, Dan? You can actually see my playlist now. You can see how many songs I have on here. Let's put personal favorites. There we go. King Kinetics. King Kinetics is Dan. He's my old college roommate. He stops by. Alrighty. What do you got? Yes, there he is. We're doing it digital tonight. That's right. Hi, guys. Pupils have eyelashes. That's so creepy. Alright, this is totally not what I'm actually gonna be. Yeah, okay. La 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 la. Okay, so I know, it's wacky, it's crazy, it's insane. It's freaking nuts, man. Okay. Let me grab a black pen here. Cool. So basically I've started drawing a whole lot of nothing. I'm not actually going to be drawing anything specific here. This is simply talking about... Hello class, my name is Professor... Actually, hold on a second. Here we go. My name is Professor Panekvar. Hello, class. Actually, I wonder if this is gonna work. Hold on a second. Time to erase the board. Wow, that's totally not working. It's actually jamming up the computer. Cancel! Wow, it's slowly cranking through it. I should not have done that. It's very slowly morphing the image. Alright, hold on. I've got the spinny wheel of death going on my computer right now. This is the danger in doing something that's very graphics heavy, that is on a 3000 by 1500 image at 300 dpi on a computer that's 8 years old. It's not the best choice. Not the best option to do. I'm going to take the opportunity to open a can of soda. Hello, Blackthorn Rose. Welcome to the show. We'll resume the show as soon as this stops being stupid. We have to deal with the slowness of my computer tonight because this is Photoshop. So, and I just did far too much smudge tool for what is healthy on my computer. This is ridiculous. Come on, stop it! Stop it! I'm gonna make this smaller. Right now, the blackboard, quote unquote, is ridiculously huge and is a lot bigger than it needs to be. So I'm going to make it smaller because this is ridiculous. Oh my god! Just freaking go! Come on. Wow, chopped garlic in your burgers? That sounds really good. I had Taco Bell tonight. Yes, Taco Bell. It is delicious. It's the bell. The bell. Sorry. Yep. Taco Bell is good. Das is good. Yeah, well, I'm old school. And this totally isn't even how a blackboard erases either. The eraser doesn't actually smudge the chalk, it actually lifts it up, and this is the opposite of what it's supposed to do. Wow, this is freaking ridiculous. Alright, screw this. While I'm waiting for that to work, let's look at my playlist. Let's pick out a better song. Anybody have a request? Can you actually see what it says? Like, can you guys read the text, or is it too small? Is it done? It's still going! Okay. Nope. Can't read it. Alright, cool. Well, then I'll just pick a song and play it. Trance music! Yay, trance music! Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to do that. Because it's still going! Alright, that's it. Sorry, Photoshop. I apologize for you. Apologize for this. Very well, Photoshop. Photo chappy. Okay, for real now. I did force quit! It's still going! It ignored the force quit! I have a freaking, it's a Sith version of Photoshop, because it's not working at all. Oh my god. Ezzy was dressed as Hit Girl from Kick-Ass. Apparently the smudge tool is greater than force quit. Oh my god, is it done? Is it done, or is it still going? Nope, it's still going. Look at that. Okay, this is freaking ridiculous. Photoshop, force quit, force quit. There we go! Alright, I had to do it manually. Alright. Now then. Alright, now we can start it up. There we go. So we're just 20 minutes into the tutorial, and I haven't even started the tutorial yet because my blackboard decided to go all Jedi on me and completely ignore what I was trying to tell it. So, we will do this the proper way now. Okay. I'm doing a tutorial tonight, Muddy. I'm doing a tutorial on comic book layouts and composition. Well, yeah, that's the problem right there. Alright, inches. We'll try inches. Let's do 6x4 at 75 resolution. Well, bam! It's tiny. Let's try doing actual pixel width now. 900 by 600. Bam! Darling, I wanted you to be my sweet honeybee. Okay, we will pick a different song. Let's put on just trance party. How about that? We all like trance music. It's good. Any objections? No? Good. Well, DDR power. Best games for Konami. Be my sweet honeybee. We will have DDR music. How about that? There you go. Okay. Wha-bam! There it is! I can't believe that that's actually coming out, like, in a week. That's so freaking ridiculous. I mean, I'm all for new and innovative ways to play video games, but I'm sorry, Kinect is not a game controller. Kinect is just it's an interface device. It's like the dang Minority Report screen navigation system. All right, let me try this again. Wah 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 wah. Hello. Actually, ba 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 ba. Let's put on actual brush tool. That's too thin. Put on 9. Yeah, it's better. You guys can see that, right? And now if I smudge it. Yep, that's totally feasible. But it totally doesn't work. I'll just hit delete. Yeah. Way to do it the cheap way. Okay. So welcome to comic book comp 101. I don't know why I decided to take this. Okay, fine. We'll do it the whiteboard way. How about that? Yeah. Okay. So what we got is the basics of comic layouts. Now, these rules, I just want to say ahead of time, these basic concepts are applicable to both traditional and digital comics. Just because I'm doing this in Photoshop does not mean that you can only do this in Photoshop. I'm not going to go over the explanation of how to do comic book layouts, like the technical side of things. That's a different tutorial. This is meant to just give the thought process behind how to lay out your pages. So, it's yellow. Ew. So yes, this is still recording, yes. So what we got is a thumbnail. Now, when you're laying out, the thumbnails are, I say optional. I mean, it's good to practice with them, but I personally don't use them. But if you're laying out panels in a thumbnail, it's giving yourself a good idea of how to start off small to work bigger. Yeah, Paul Bunyan still. I was like, needs a little green in here. Hold on. Gross. Okay. So yeah, when you're writing your... there's different steps to writing comics. There's the script phase, there's the thumbnail phase, then there's the rough layout, the refined layout, the inking, blah, 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 blah. Thumbnail specifically is taking your idea and putting it literally this big on the page. And so what you do is you're laying out, say you're doing like, you know, big middle panel here and then 3 panels on the bottom. And then you can just do rough sketches here, blah, 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 and then say someone's chasing someone else here, and they're chasing after them. And then action panel, get back here, and then, you know, sound effects panel, and then dudes laying on the ground, smoking gun, and yeah, so that's literally as big as you're drawing at this phase. It's mostly just to give yourself a point of reference, because you're going to look at this, as long as it's, you know, within a reasonable amount of time, you're going to look at this and you're going to know what this is. This is completely archaic to anyone else, but this is just a starting point for planning it out. Now, the things you need to keep in mind when you're laying out your panels is it's important to have readability and to understand the basic concept here is that because of how we read comics. Now, I'm not referring to manga or Japanese writing, which is the exact opposite, but for the majority of English-speaking literature, or English literature, it's going to start top to bottom, left to right. So you're going to go in that direction. So that's the direction the eye is naturally inclined to go. You're going to go da, 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 da. You're going to want to go that way. Any variation from this, and you're going to confuse the reader. Now, that's not saying that you can't deviate from this path. You very well can, but if you do, you have to make sure that you are in control of where the reader's eye goes. Exactly. Now, comic layouts work the same way. The basic layout is, you know, let's just use the one Jeff Smith uses all the time. If you ever read Bone, Jeff Smith does this all the time. You can open any page of Bone and you'll find this standard 6-panel layout. And naturally, if you're reading this, your eye automatically knows where to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You already know where it's going to go. And so he plans the action accordingly. He very rarely, for the first few volumes of Bone, you can look at almost any page. 95% of the pages all have this layout. And no matter what's going on in the pages, it could be an epic action shot, it could be just 2 characters talking, like the floating heads panel. It could be just a silent panel with a scenic shot, environment shot. And it's all using this same 6-panel layout. Because it's what works. I mean, that is the most safe and surefire way to make sure that your readers are not going to get confused. It's a classic layout, yeah. And you can vary that up with a different number of panels per row, or different numbers of rows. I mean, I usually use for Peter & Company, you'll notice I usually have 4 rows, and then I change up what number of panels are on each row, so it'd be like this. And this still, you're going to know what to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. See, there you go. Now, yeah, other layouts that use little arrows, that's interesting point. J-Rec just pointed out. What's up? Are they?
Yeah, did you want to do it Sunday?
I guess we can do it Sunday.
But I mean, I don't know.
I don't know either. Hold on a second. Yeah, I'm about to explain why that's not a good idea.
I wanted to do it Saturday, but...
Okay. Hold on just a second. Whitney just walked in. Okay, so you want to do it Sunday then?
I wanted to do it Saturday, so I told him to find out from Brad.
Yeah, find out what's going on, because I mean, it's kind of my birthday. Okay, here. Is it hot chocolate or coffee?
It's hot chocolate.
Oh.
Do you want me to tell you Dad we really want to do it Saturday?
I would like to, if possible. It's just easier. Ooh, thank you, baby. Whew. Hot, 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 hot. Whitney made me hot chocolate. Midnight Blaze. Yes. I'm playing all DDR music in the background. Okay, so those backgrounds, specifically what you're talking about, is when you have a cluster, pardon my language, a cluster of, I'm not going to say it, but when you have a mind-boggling layout, like, say you have this right here. Do you know what order you're supposed to read these panels? Just out of curiosity. You have no idea. And so you'll see comics, especially, now I'm not saying, webcomic artists are more guilty than professionals, because I've seen situations like this in professional comics. And not to point fingers, but you see this all the time in Archie comics, and that's a completely different rant for a completely different day. So, I'm not even, don't get me started on Archie comics. It's so, oh god, grates my nerves every time I flip through one of those damn books, because you just see so many errors all over the place. Oh my god, I just want to go to their offices with a huge glove and just slap every single artist on the staff, like, really hard across the back of the head. I'll talk to you about it after the show, okay? I won't. I'll talk to you about it in a little bit, okay? I promise. Hold on a second, guys. Hold on a second. Yeah. Alrighty. Oh my gosh. Okay. Ah! What the heck is that? Okay. Okay, so yes. Now, a lot of artists, sorry about that, a lot of artists are guilty of this. And I gotta find my train of thought again here. Okay. Oy vey. Yeah, this type of thing, you find people that, I can understand what they're trying to do, but a lot of people don't consider the ramifications of this. And so, like what was it I mentioned? Money Pause? Or Afraid Logic? Oh no, J-Rec. What J-Rec mentioned with the arrows is that you'll find artists that do like, go like this, and then they have like little arrows that are directing the eye to go a certain place, and they try and tell people to read it a certain way. No. That's, if you have to resort to arrows to direct the viewer's eye around the page, then your layout is crap and you need to start over. Whoa. And you need to start over. I mean, that's just being brutally honest. I mean, there are ways that you can do it properly, and you should be aiming to do it properly. shoot for, you know, something that's at least comprehensible to anybody who's never read a comic before. And the basic rule is just, you know, even if you're doing it like sort of like how they had it, you know, with funky panel layouts like this, you can overlap panels to direct the eye around. You know, this panel layout right here would work just fine, because you know exactly how you're supposed to go. It's supposed to go just like this, and your eye is not going to get confused doing this. Hold on a second, let me fix this here so I don't have to keep going like this again and again. Alright, so your eye is not going to get confused in that kind of a layout. But ways that you can ensure that you're not going to be confusing your readers. Keep in mind the hierarchy of panel size and layout, keeping in mind left to right, top to bottom. So if you have a larger panel and then you want to have smaller panels, make sure the larger panel's to the left and the eye is automatically going to go 1, 2, 3. You're not going to get confused with this layout. Now, if you do small, small, and then big, this risks confusing the reader because the hierarchy is thrown off. You don't know whether it's going to go 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3. You don't know which way it's supposed to go. So naturally, the eye gets confused because the largest isn't first and foremost. And so this is, you know, where you're going to run into trouble. And you need to refine this in the thumbnail form, because if you can't figure out where the eye is going to go in a smaller size, you know, if you've got this layout here that all of a sudden becomes confusing towards the end, you're going to have to fix this before you start putting it down on paper or start drawing it a larger size. This is the time to refine the layout and to make sure that it's going to turn out properly. Now this, you know, this also isn't in experimental panels. Like you have the triangle panels and the people who have like the crazy cutout panels, and then the circle inset panels and the square panels and everything. It ends up looking like, you know, Art Nouveau. This kind of thing, you know, the same rules apply. Oh, I'll get to that in a second here. The same rules apply for whether you're doing experimental layouts or for standard square grids. You're going to be dealing with the same principles, the same inherent flaws in layout, or rules in layout. See this layout right here? You know exactly where it's going to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know exactly where it's going to go. And this one here, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Your eye automatically goes down the page. So just follow those basic rules, and 9 times out of 10 you'll end up with a functional page design. Now, what Muddy Paws just asked about, the white space between the sections. Just to quickly explain, these white sections between the panels are extremely important to have. These are gutters. Now these are important to have because these not only provide a visual separation between the panels, but it also signifies mentally that there is a passage of time between the panels. Because if you have a panel layout that is literally this, just these 4 panels right here, there's no separation. There's no, you know, distance between them. So it's very easy to misinterpret it and to, you know, immediately go from one panel to the other. Common practice is you need that gutter space to separate out the action and to make each panel its own defining moment in time. Now you can intentionally you can intentionally break that rule if you want to have things happening simultaneously. Like, say you've got one character, you know, trying to, you know, run towards a car while inside the car someone's, you know, preparing to shoot them by pulling a gun out of a box, you know, and you see the guy running up from the outside. You can keep those two panels together because they're happening simultaneously. And by doing that, you can actually make it read as if they are happening at the same time. Exactly. So, I've seen panels, some of the coolest panels I've seen is like events like this, where they have a series of panels. I'm not going to draw it all out, but you can get the same idea here. Where the guy, say he's running towards the car, he's, you know, opening the car door, he gets shot, and then he's on the ground in a puddle of blood, okay? In this one, the guy's taking out the gun. As this guy's opening the door, this guy points at the glass, fires, and then he's starting the car while he's on the ground, going away. Simultaneous point of views, same exact time happening in each panel, but you can see from two different point of views. You can do that. Yeah, that's very effective. That's a good way to do it. But that's through exploiting and breaking the rules. So it's to keep in mind that gutters are essential. They're not something that should be considered optional with comic layouts. And it's something that I see far too often, especially with, I'm not going to say manga, but manga-inspired webcomics. I've seen, like, say this is the graphic. This is not an actual page here. I've seen so many webcomic artists make a layout that doesn't have borders. Like, it's literally just, they just draw the characters on a black space. They maybe have a border here with a panel, and then there's something happening here, and something over here, and then a word balloon, and something happening over here. And it's just, it can get very disorienting if you don't handle that properly. You can have an entire comic page that has no borders, but it still tells a full story just by directing the eye properly. And that's something that you can very easily mess up, and I've seen it messed up far too many times. Now, yes, the gutter distance between panels, typically speaking, that sucks. Hold on a second. Typically speaking, it's going to be about a quarter of an inch. That's the standard of the standard industry practice for a traditional comic layout. And by traditional, I mean squares. You know, blah 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 blah. That's going to be a quarter of an inch between panels, and that's both vertically and horizontally. So this is going to be a quarter of an inch as well. If you make it wider, then that's entirely up to you, but keep it consistent. You know, the standard practice is to keep consistent panel separation, like the distance between panels consistent. If you go shorter than a quarter of an inch, if you go closer than that, then you're going to run the risk of the panels merging together. And that's going to be a problem. That's going to, you know, obviously trip up the potential readability of the page. So, yes, that's gutters. Next important topic is word balloons. Now, the word balloons are not just a vessel for, you know, words. They're so much more than that. You can do some, yeah, the final product will almost always print smaller than the size you're working at. So that's something to keep in mind as well. You know, if, you know, I work large and it scales down to a much smaller size, but I also try to make sure that they're big enough to where you'll be able to see them at the smaller size. So, word balloons, Peter, I'll just say Peter, whatever. Word balloons are more than just the container for dialogue. they also are a graphical element, and you need to make sure that you place them properly, or again, just like improper panel layouts, you're going to end up with some confusion. So in a panel, you have two characters talking. La 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 la. La 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 la. La la la. Now say this character right here speaks first. And he says, "Hi. What's up? Not much. You?" Now, if you were to see this panel, how would you read it? And yeah, this is important to do in the thumbnail step too, as also planning ahead where the word balloons are going to go. If you see this, again, natural inclination is to go left to right, top to bottom. So you're going to see this and you're going to read it, "Not much. You? Hi, what's up?" And you go, wait a second, that's not right. So there is definitely going to be some confusion here. The way that you can counter this, because having the character on the right, either swap the two characters so that they're switched, or simply establish a hierarchy in the panel. Go like this. So you got the two characters, da 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 da. We can skip that music. There you go. Now you can make it, because they're the same horizontally, they start at the same point, but one is higher than the other. So there you go. Hi, what's up? Not much, you? There you go. Now you're reading it properly. Easy solution. That is very simple. I mean, it's again, it's something you can eliminate these problems just by being aware of the potential confusion that you can bring to the readers by doing this. And it's also it's important to keep this in mind when you're doing extended dialogue branches, and that's when you have multiple bits of dialogue that are all being spoken by the same characters. Like when someone does this, you know, this can get confusing. Now granted that, you know, automatically you're starting with 1 and 2, but to go back and forth like this, it can get extremely confusing, because this just gets very, yeah, you know. If you're going to do something like this, you should keep the word balloons close enough together to where you're not going to get confused what's going to get put where. And also, this much of a complicated balloon tree, this bores the reader. I'm just going to come right out and say it. This right here, this whole situation, this scenario is extremely dull, because it's all reading. It's all nothing but reading. There's nothing visual about this. And having to make the eye go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right is good. You're going to wear down the reader, and they're going to lose interest through this. So don't do this. Wall of text, not good. Yeah. This is what you see in professional comics. You see this in mainstream trade paperback. You see this crap all the time. They're always doing this. And it's like, ah, gosh, stop it. Yeah, exactly. So, to bypass that, yeah, you could definitely split this into 2 panels, but you'll want to have a gutter, because there's a separation of time between when the different panels are spoken. So you can go like this. I would say at a maximum for comfort, have 2 pieces of dialogue from each character. Because that way you can at least be sure that the viewer is going to get a piece of artwork to go along with what those characters are doing at that time. And then you can change it up with another scene, like maybe he's like reaching out to him like, "Come back," and he's like, "No, I won't." He's got his arm folded like this. "Come back, I miss you." Like, "Come back." "No, why?" You know, that's readable. If you have crammed all of this into a single panel, that would have been completely dull. That would have been terrible. But you can do this. You can, yeah. The way your gutter acts as a pause between statements. That's exactly right. It breaks up the dialogue, it breaks up the action, it gives the characters a chance to move, a chance to animate. That's not always true either. Well, that's personal preference. Because having a tail, like having a character in a panel talking, and another character is, you know, talking from like off panel over here. You've got the one guy saying a line, the other guy says a line, but where are they talking from? It's just, if you have a word balloon without a tail, a word balloon without a tail is not going anywhere. It's an omnipotent voice. This type of balloon right here, without a tail, has no speaker. This is the kind of balloon that is spoken by an omnipotent voice that is all-powerful, all-knowing, and is everywhere. But if it's not God speaking, yeah, or Korgar, if it's not God or Korgar, then it needs to have a tail just to define where the voice is coming from. And in that case, all you can do is just lead it, you know, coming off the panel, or, you know, from above or something like that. And that just gives an idea of where the character is, the speaker is, in relation to, you know, what's going on. Wow, that's creepy. I'm getting that off my screen. Okay. So, where do we go from here? Got the word balloons. Okay. Word balloon placement as a mode of direction. Now that's something that can be really fun. When the tail is in the bubble? You mean like this? How it's like this? You mean like when there's that little bit like right here? This is let me show you. Oh, or you mean like with this? Like that? Yeah, when it does this, this is when you've got too much dialogue to fit in one word balloon, like, you know, dialogue 1 and dialogue. I know that's probably misspelling. I think it's dialogue, dialogue. I don't know how to. Yeah, dialogue 2, whatever. Dialogue 1 and 2. You don't want to cram too much lettering into one word balloon. If you do that, then you're going to end up with a wall of text, and that's a big no-no with comics. So you make these tails, which not only connect the dialogue to show that all these word balloons belong to the same character, but also, this right here, much like a gutter, is a break in time. This right here is a breath. So when you do this, this is the character speaking out the one line and going, and then speaking again. So that's, you know, something you can use to break it up, and that's also good because if you've got, you know, even if it's not too much dialogue for that, you can go like this. I've done this in many times in Peter and Company. This exact situation right here. It's no. And you know, there's that pause in between there. The longer this tail is, the longer the pause is going to be. Exactly. So it's no. And that exact situation goes like that. So let's skip this song. It's good, but I don't want to hear Sanamulet in it or whatever it is called. So there's that. Now, in terms of directing the eye around, yeah, continuation in thought, take a moment to think. Yeah, it's a pause. It's a pause in time. It's a breath. It's a moment to think. It's just a break in dialogue. It's a break in speech. It can, you know, be anything. It's just a time. It's a way of lapsing time between word balloons within the context of a single panel. Rather than putting two word balloons in two separate panels, you know, within range of, well, not this huge gutter space, but yeah. putting two separate word balloons, you can just use, you know, one of those connectors to put them together. And it still gets that break effect, even if, you know, you don't have to put the character in the same pose in two different panels. Same thing. So now, if you've got word balloon, word balloon, word balloon, word balloon, word balloon, word balloon. This is creating a line of sight with the word balloons. When you get down to this panel, there's going to be less inclination to read this balloon before this balloon, simply because you've established a tangent. With the layout of the word balloons, you have directed the eye around the page. This is another way that you need to utilize word balloons as a graphical element, as a layout element, instead of just a holder for dialogue. It can be just as big a part of the artwork as the characters and the environments and the panels. They're all elements of comics that need to work in tandem, being just as important as anything else in order to tell a story and to make it as readable as possible. That's what you're trying to shoot for. Wow, that's good hot chocolate. Yep. And this stuff is nothing new. If you've ever had any courses in composition, with painting, with sketching, with anything, establishing tangents to direct the eye around the page, it's not a new concept, and this can be applied to any form of design or art. Yeah. So, for example, I see commonly, if you've got, you know, say this is a page. This is not, well, hold on a second. You got a page. Here you go. Proper page size. Exactly. If you're working with a team, communicate with these people that you're working with to make sure they understand your intent with the layout so they don't get goofed up. Oh man, so good. Okay. Now I have seen panel layouts that say... Alright, let me just come up with one real quick, I think. Do you have any idea which word balloons you're supposed to read in this proper order? In this order. Do you have any idea what the layout is with this? I mean, this is just one example of how you can butcher word balloon placement. Because where do you go? I mean, your eye is basically going, like, having this be at the top up here, your eye is now down here, you're automatically going to go down to this word balloon. But doing so completely misses this one. So what is this word balloon up here? So if you're reading, okay, you got 1, 2, 3. That's understandable. But then from here, do you go up there? No, you don't, because there's no fluidity there. It's going to go all the way down here. And then when you get to this point, you're going to go to this one, obviously, but then your eye is automatically going to jump down to this balloon, but completely miss this one. So you've established a tangent in the middle that completely bypasses these two balloons on the side. In this kind of situation, you can see this occurring in webcomics very commonly. And it's dangerous. I mean, you can really screw up a page by not placing things properly. So these are all just examples of how it can, it's dangerous. Be careful. They'll come after your children in the night. Improper word balloons are a danger to society. See? I'm guilty of this too. Every example that I'm giving, this is the thing, is that, don't feel like I'm giving you a dunce cap or something, because I've worn this hat myself. Okay? I have done all of these things myself. I can show you examples sometime if you want to see where I've butchered comic pages so many times by putting word balloons in funky places, or by not using gutters, or just messing things up completely just by not knowing any better. I just didn't know what I was doing. And once you learn these elements, once you learn these things, you'll find yourself being more consciously aware of it when you're planning out the pages. And I mean, I use a lot of, with my pages, like I said, I use a lot of standard layouts with 4 rows and no more than 3 panels per row, sometimes a full panel in a row. But that's generally what the layout of Peter and Company looks like. And I'm probably going to use the same layout for Chronicles of Audemars. So, I mean, it's safe. It's, it's a safe layout and it gets the job done, but it's not to say you can't experiment. You can't do, or you can do whatever you want with the layout. You can go borderless with the panels. You can have just one full page with a full illustration, with all your drawings telling the story. You can have circle panels, triangle panels. You can have, dodecahedron panels, whatever you want. As long as it fits the story, do whatever you want. As long as it's readable, do whatever you want. Have fun with it. That's the point. And yes, okay, Money Paws brings up a good point. Alright, so let me do something real quick here. Whoa, hold on a second. Blah, 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 blah. Dialogue, I'll say dialogue, there you go, yeah. Can you guys read this? Let me select this one here. Yeah, run-on sentences are also something to avoid. But this huge bubble right here, this huge word balloon, this is no longer a word balloon. This is a word blimp. This is massive, because your character is going to be this big. You're going to be a little tiny guy talking. And he just blurted out this massive amorphous blob of text that is now going to completely swallow everything around it. So this is, yeah, a word blimp. And that's, you want to avoid this. Just typically, yeah, no, bad. Don't do this. That's bad. I mean, it's bad. Don't do that. Now, let me get rid of this text here. Another type of blimp that you should avoid, not just the huge one that covers up the entire upper ranks of, you know, the 95% of retail space that you have in a comic, but also if you have a panel like this, let me resize this real quick. Hold on. Let me take us 18 points. Okay. Now you know what it says. There's just a little bit of dialogue there. Say you want this bit of dialogue here to fit at the top of the page. So you put it like that. Okay? Now when you draw, well, it's not going to overlap the panel, obviously, but that's it right there. Now when you... No, cancel. Okay. When you put the word balloon around this, you're going to end up with this long, stretched out, kind of, you know, burnt, this... Essentially what one professor at SCAD referred to as a submarine. Because it looks like a freaking... You know... It looks like a sub. It looks like a submarine sandwich with all the trimmings and all the fillings and everything. That's what it looks like. It's this long, stretched out, oblongish little word balloon, and it's just ugly. It can be easily avoided too. This situation right here, where you've got this long panel, it's going to be taking up more horizontal space than it needs to be, and yeah, exactly. You can even, you know, dive. So, yes, put this on here. The way that you can solve this problem, it's extremely simple. When you're doing a layout, plan ahead for this. And then when you draw in the word balloons, all of a sudden now it's a normal size. And you're no longer taking up this huge, you know, extended reach of a sub. Now it's a normal balloon. This is a balloon. Right here. And yes. And yes, that's very true too. By breaking up lots of dialogue into a few balloons, you're going to add the white space necessary for ease of reading. That's a good way of putting it. Yep, and that's why I always try to center words like that. And you try to break up the dialogue to where you're going to know in advance, you're going to want to shoot for the optimal shape of a word balloon is like this. And typically you're going to want to shoot for something around this proportion. So if it's like, you know, a little wider or a little longer or whatever, that's fine. Just don't do this. don't do that. And don't do this. Don't do a full panel, full big panel full of stuff. And also don't do this. You've got a character down here. Hi, what's up? I'm giving a big speech, so I'm going to start here, then go here, and then to here, and then a big blob here, and then a little bit there, and then a little bit there, and then this. And it's going to go blop, 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 and finally a tail at the end. This guy basically just got sick about 8 times And you can see where he was having the dry heaves giving this all up. I mean, that's a horrible explanation of this concept here. But yeah, he did. He got sick multiple times, and that's all this is he just left all of his evidence right here in the panel. He's blah, 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 blah. He went blah, 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 blah. And so that's that. Right there. Don't do this! This is horrendous! Who's gonna sit here and read all these word balloons? And what's the point? It's completely arbitrary to make a balloon make a backwards S shape to make it do this. I mean, I know this is just me throwing it down as an example, and this isn't actually, you know, a comic page, God forbid. But there's no logic behind the balloons making this pattern, aside from just trying to squeeze in all this dialogue unnecessarily into a single panel. I mean, you could do so much better than this, really. I mean, yes, you could rearrange these bits of dialogue, just break up the panels, make it individual, and then do something more interesting than just drawing one character one time and giving him a huge, long, drawn-out monologue. This is what I consider, I mean, it might not be PC to say this, but it's lazy. I mean, this is what I consider to be a cop-out for people who just want to draw a character one time and have him standing there ranting at dialogue balloons, because these balloons take literally seconds to throw in, especially if you're doing it in Photoshop or whatever. You can just click a tool, put in the balloon, type in the text, move on to the next one. You could finish a page in like 5 or 10 minutes, because all you had to worry about was drawing the character one time. So that is the only excuse I can come up with for doing a layout like this, is if the guy doing the comic, or whoever it is, team or whoever, just doesn't want to draw their character multiple times. And in which case, why are you drawing a comic? If you want to just write, then just write. Just write it down on paper. Don't sit here and think about making it a comic when you're not actually making it a comic. This is not a comic. It's an illustrated wall of text. It's an illustrative page of text. That's what that is. So, I mean, that's I mean, pretty much the summary of it. I mean, I'm trying to think of other facts. I mean, do you guys have any specific questions on what I've gone over so far on this? Is there anything else that you need me to cover? Because, I mean, this is essentially the basics. That's, I mean, I've got, oh, yes, I just thought of one more thing. Well, tail placement is pretty simple. Wasn't what I was gonna say, but one rule for that. Thank you for mentioning that. Actually, one rule for that is just real quick, a quick question to you guys. See if you can guess what I'm gonna make for this rule. Who's talking here? Just to give you a quick little trivia question here, or a quick quiz question. Who is the speaker in this situation? Dude to the left, right? This guy here? Okay. Now, who's the speaker? This is a crude example, but who's the speaker now? Exactly. This is an important element of word balloon placement. Proper direction with the tail. The typical place you're going to want to point to is the face, obviously, because that's where the voice is coming from. The tail is the direction of the voice, okay? If someone's off panel, you're going to want to point it off panel to where the voice is coming from, okay? Now, if you point it anywhere else, it's not going to look right. And also, typically, imagine it, because it's a word balloon. How does a word balloon, oh, not a word balloon, how does an actual balloon float in the air? Like that, right? Word balloons follow the same laws of physics. This is a good way to just visualize it. If you're going to be putting a tail on a balloon, the balloon is going to be pulled down by gravity. So in a word balloon, it's going to be somewhere generally between these 2 points on the balloon. So like the lower curve, you're going to want to put it somewhere on here, generally speaking. Unless there is a limit in space and you need to put the tail at the top of the balloon for whatever reason. Say like you don't have room, if there's like a clutter of artwork in the middle in here, and there's just no room to put the tail, you can put it on the top. But do this sparingly, because this looks a little jarring, and this just doesn't come off looking natural. Now, admittedly, I am horribly at fault for doing the backwards or the upside down word balloons. I do this far too often, and I need to work on remembering that, because I'm entirely guilty of this. But this is not something that you should practice, because it definitely runs the risk of having it, you know, run like that. Yes, you can do that. Uh-oh, running into a little problem here. Hold on. Okay, there we go. That guy looks evil. I just realized I drew him looking like really mad. La 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 la. So there you go. Say you got like, hi, and you got la 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 la. You can totally do that. Yep. Okay. That's another thing. So yes, you can do this. Now, what Frayed Logic just suggested, with it coming out the top and being curved versus being a straight triangle coming out the bottom, this is not so much a written rule as it is a stylistic choice. And that is one part where I'll argue in favor of that, because this right here, this versus this, typically does not... Okay, I can't take this song anymore. Having it be a curved tail like this versus just a very straight and angular tail, I guess it still looks like that, I guess. Like that. That's a style choice. Also a style choice is something that I do just because I like how it looks. And I've been doing it this whole tutorial, I don't know if you've noticed. But when you have a word balloon, I will leave these little pieces right here. The ones that are coming into the word balloon, that's just force of habit on my part. And I had a couple professors at SCAD that freaking hated it. It was like a pet peeve of theirs. They always told me to stop. It was like, smacking my hands with a ruler. Like, stop it! Because what you'll see more often than not in comics is this. Having it be smooth right there. Rather than having this little bits of tail come up here. This is just, again, it's just the way that I prefer to draw word balloons. It's not saying that this is wrong or that this is right or vice versa. It's just different ways to approach it, to handle it. You can do it either way that you want to do it, however fits your style, however fits your approach to doing the word balloons. So, yeah. I prefer it moving in to the balloon. I like having this little bit, I don't know why. It's just, I just like the look of it. I like having that little extra bit in the balloon. That is also true if you're doing digital balloons. It's a lot easier for vector if you're using like the pen tool or any other tools to combine shapes together, it automatically does this and creates a contour shape. And so it does this version of the balloon automatically, versus this, you would have to go in and manually add these lines to tell it to do that. And that's extra work. So I understand if you're doing digital word balloons, this is going to be the faster option right here. So that makes sense. Yep, another type of word balloon I've seen used is having it be a solid circle and then just a little, and that's it. You see this in comic strips. There's a few comic strips in the newspapers, syndicated strips, that do balloons this way. And this is not incorrect either. This is a style choice, a style-wise choice. Experiment with word balloons, because this is something to consider. That your art style, the way that you draw characters, and the way that you, color your comic and present it, define your style. They define, a recognizable visual element that people will look at and go, oh, wait, that's, Muddy Paws's style. That's King Kinetics' style. But word balloons can be just as important in defining that style, because the way that you draw balloons, you can make it your own. You can come up with a unique way to do the word balloons, and it can make it a recognizable style that is just as important as anything else in the comic. Again, all elements of a comic need to work together and be just as important as each other in creating the final product. Lettering height inside the balloon, that varies. Having lettering inside of balloons, between balloons, is, yeah, it depends on the size of the word, but you want it to be consistent. Whatever size you choose for lettering, there's two things to consider. Number one, consistency. You're going to want to use the same size text. Alright, dude, that's no problem. But you're going to want to use the same size text for standard spoken dialogue across all panels and across all characters and everything. And you need to consider that when it scales down, because if you're working large, what might be readable to you at a larger size, when it scales down to the smaller printed size, the lettering might get too small if you chose too small of a size. Yes, exactly. Also, a rule that I see flat out ignored, and this is something that a lot of people, I don't think that people even realize that this is a rule of comics. Again, to improve readability and to make it consistent, alright, let me just type up an example here and I'll explain it. Okay. Alright, let me pop this open here. Now then, let me just rearrange this here. I drew this too low. Now, do you notice what I did with this? This reads perfectly fine, doesn't it? Yep. Now, what you're going to realize with this, and this is, you'll see me doing this and utilizing this in my comics when I do them by hand. I draw the guides out ahead of time. And what I see a lot of people doing and completely ignoring is the idea of things being on an invisible guide across the page. Now what I'm talking about is, oh, hold on a second, that's too big. 0.01. Let's try See that? They are all, it's like writing them out on notebook paper. If this gets turned off, you can still see how they line up. That's important. That is very important. Because if you were to take these and put them on varying levels, it throws off the eye. And it's a subconscious thing. You're not going to be aware of it at first when it happens, but it will cause a bit of discomfort and confusion with it. Because now if I were to draw in the guides, you've got a whole bunch of different guides in here. See, this guide here is now going... Okay, this isn't exactly the best example. I didn't move them enough, but you can see this one goes through this letter here. That's a better example of it. You know. See, they're all on different platforms here. And this isn't right. They should all be on, like you're writing the dialogue on notebook paper. That's the easiest way to describe it. Let me see if I can back up here. There you go. That's the proper way to do it. Just have everything lined up like that. If you can imagine, or if you can guide out, or if you can rule in your guides before you put down the dialogue, then everything will look fine. And it'll all be uniform. And also, if you have multiple panels... Hold on a second. And dialogue balloons across them all. Same rules are going to apply here when you do the text. Make sure that they all take place on the same lines across everything, across all the borders. Yep. I do all the text first because it defines where the word balloons are going to go, and the word balloons I put keeping in mind where the characters are going to be inside the panel and what's going on. After doing this, I'll rough in the pencils for the characters, like da, 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 hey, what's up, da, 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 da. And then after everything is put in place, I'll say like that's like a behind the view type thing. Yeah, hey, what's up? And that's it right there. Yeah, if you draw first and say you don't plan ahead for any of this stuff, then you're going to run into problems. If you've put all this detail into these characters, you know, I'm so sad. But then you suddenly realize you've got a big bunch of dialogue to put in here and you've got no space to put it. And you definitely do not want to crop anything off. Okay, let me close this out here. Alright. Select all these and delete, and then bam. Also, one last thing I'll talk about. The last thing I'll talk about on this. This has nothing to do with word balloons. This is simply for the composition between panels. Actually, this is not a good example of it. Hold on. Now, if you had this panel layout, or something similar to this, let's try... Well, I guess that's fine. That's fine enough. Yeah. So, if you were to have standard action in these panels, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Because rule of left to right, top to bottom, you would read it in this order. Now, what's confusing is not only the fact that you have 4 individual panels here that all seem to be lumped in order, but let's say you also have, say, a character like here, like running here, and reaching for a tree, and then let's say he pulls the tree out of the ground like this, like he's yanking it up, and then here he's got it, you know, above his head. Ha ha! I pulled the tree out of the ground. And he goes, now, it's like, you're going to get it. Like he starts, you know, running like this way. And this one has the guy walking up to the item, whatever it is. So, in terms of what the reader is supposed to read, you have number 1. He's walking to the pole, or tree limb. Let's just say it's like the Hulk or something. He runs up and sees a tree, reaches down, grabs it, and yanks it up. Like he's, let's say, like his arm is like this, like he's grabbing it, he's hugging it to lift it up. In terms of the story, you're supposed to go to panel 4 to have him lift it up over his head. Now he's holding it in his arms, and he's like, now you're going to die, and then he holds it over his head while he charges. Now, the problem here, aside from this, is that you have created a tangent in the artwork. And this is something you have to be careful of, because this can happen even without you even realizing it. And it's, again, something that's very common mistake. So many people make it. I make it quite a few times in my artwork. I've found that it's hidden tangents everywhere. In that it goes like this. The eye is going to follow this naturally because you've created an implied line with the direction that the pole is facing in each panel. In your head, you're thinking, as the artist, alright, well this makes sense to me because he grabs it, and you're looking at each individual section alone. So, you know, let's, hold on a second. Let's do something here. Let's see if I can do this a good way. Select inverse. Alright. Keep it off all layers. Alright. In your head, you're thinking... Hold on a second. In your head, you're thinking... Oh, damn it! Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to make this a big square so I can do this properly. Okay, in your head, you're thinking like this. Grabs the tree. And if you look at it like this, you know, he grabs it, lifting it up, haha, and then he goes, everyone should die, and he charges at it. So in your head, you're thinking that, because that's how you're approaching it, because you know the story. Take away this, look at it all as one solid piece, all of a sudden you've got this tangent over here, and you don't know what the heck's going on. So that's something to plan ahead for, to consider when you're doing this, and to keep in mind any potential tangents within the artwork itself. Which is, yeah, that's a no-no. So yeah, what was your question, Muddy? You said you had a good question? Okay. I did look at it, yeah. I'm gonna type up some comments because are you noticing in the examples that I'm giving here they're they're obviously not. I'm not drawing your comic down, but a couple of the things that I've mentioned are done a little bit in the pages you sent me. So I mean, all of this can be applied to any projects that you see. I mean, you can look at any webcomics and see where people are making the same little hiccups. So yeah, I'll send you a typed up critique for the comics that you sent me. So yeah, Muddy Paws. Real quick, if well, I guess if you guys have any other questions too, I mean, toss them my way before I stop here, because I'm pretty much through the main bulk of it. So if anybody has any specific questions on what else to cover, I mean, this pretty much covers the extent of the tutorial. Again, these are the basics. I mean, there's a lot more stuff I could go into if I went in depth with anything, but this is just to give you a feel for it. Okay. Figures in a panel and foreshortening? Like how? Sound effects. Narration boxes. Okay. Well, Muddy Paws for shortening and vanishing points. It's not just foreshortening, but it's also environments, backgrounds, and other details like that. If you need to lay out vanishing points for your own reference, you can do that, but I would recommend doing it either in a light color or in a light pencil, just so that it won't show up in the finished product. Because you can do that, but the vanishing point for something, like say you have, like a 3-point vanishing thing like this, or I guess I'll just do 1-point perspective, it's fine. You've got like a building here, and I don't know what the heck kind of building this is, but the lines converge and they meet at a vanishing point that is off the panel, and that's entirely fine. You can do that. The vanishing points in anything, in any illustration, whether it's comics or standard drawing, paintings, vanishing points are there for your own reference. So by all means, use them. And you can have multiple vanishing points on a single page, because each panel is its own illustration. It will have its own perspective on things, So you'll have vanishing points that are over here, over here. You can have a vanishing point that appears in another panel, because if, like, say, this was a vanishing point for this, side of the building right here. Well, by doing this, I mean, this vanishing point is in relation to this panel. This has nothing to do with this panel. So just keep track of which vanishing points are for which panels, and when you lay them out, don't get confused from your own stuff. So make sure you keep tabs on it to know where everything is. Now, sound effects? I'll go over sound effects when I do a traditional lettering tutorial, and I want to do that in, like with pencil and paper. With backgrounds, it's okay. When planning out a panel with like an environment and the character, if the character is a major part of the illustration, like they're taking place like in, like standing next to a rock or walking on rocks, and there's trees and stuff like that around them. Sometimes you'll want to draw the environment as a big a part as the image as the character. So yeah, narration boxes are the same kind of concept, but yeah, for backgrounds, it depends on what you need to accomplish for that panel. I would not draw anything before you know where you need dialogue boxes to go and where they're going to go, and make sure that they're planned first, and then you can go into adding details like the characters and the backgrounds and everything. So yes, narration boxes. Same rules. For narration boxes, you're either going to have free floating boxes within, the bounding of the border, within the borders of the panel, if you know the text for it. Or you could have it just be a line and have the caption box literally be like its own major section of the panel. Rather than being a floating element, it could be this whole thing here is like a disconnected part of the panel. Essentially, that means the entirety of the action of the panel is going to be taking place in this confined area here, while this whole section of the panel is reserved for narration. This is usually the kind I use, but you can use free floating ones as well. Now, the same rules apply for the narration boxes as they do for word balloons, which means you're going to want all of the text to be on the same lines across all panels, and you're going to want to place them to be readable. In this case, say you've got a caption box down here in the lower right, but then up top here you have a full-size caption. You've got this caption here, you've got this caption down here, and then you've got this caption here. The eye is going to want to read it like this. Because again, left to right, top to bottom. And it's in that order, left, right, top to bottom. It's not left and down, or it's not to the right and down. You don't read it like this and then pop back up to read this one. The eye's natural tendency is going to want to go to the next thing that occurs to the right of it. This is the situation where the narration boxes are going to resort to the same Archie Comics, hey, go this way, hey, go this way, hey, go this way, whatever you want it to do, whatever the arrows are pointing you to do. It's another Archie Comics situation. So yes, JREC, narration boxes do follow the same rules as word bubbles and word balloons. So they're pretty much the same type of thing. They are an element that explains, is carrying dialogue or is carrying an explanation of the story. No, actually, you can make the if you have a standard thick, I can't do it with this, but if you have like a standard thickness for your borders, by all means, you can make the narration boxes be the exact same width if you want to. There's nothing that says you can't do that. Typically, the way I do it through my own personal, preference, I guess, is I will actually make it to where the border of the panel is the thickest element on there. See? Because that signifies that this is not a definition of the area, because this is an element inside the panel that, is not something that defines what's going on. Also, a subset of that with any word balloons or any tangents or anything like that, you don't want to do this. Have a guy talking. Hey, come here. And then you have this. Oh. This right here, going outside the panel, this is important to consider. When you have anything overlapping a panel border, if it's a word balloon, or say, you know, the guy's got a sword, and the sword is breaking the panel border. What this does, it freezes this frame in time. And that sounds weird. That sounds weird considering that most panels are, you know, frozen elements of time. But this is dangerous because it actually can really clash with what's going around it. Any action that's going on in this panel, when this comes over like this, say there's a panel next to it, all of a sudden this tip of the sword, whether you like it or not, it's now an element of this panel. And so because this is overlapping other panels, it's going to be interfering with the readability of this panel. And this is the same way. When this overflows, yeah, it's a lead out line, exactly. And the dangerous part there is that you see a lot of people doing it because they think, you know, it looks cool. And admittedly, it does. It's eye-catching. It is a very eye-catching thing to have. Alright. You've got this going on here, right? In fact, let's do it differently this time. Guy, say you've got like an action, you know, pose with the guy pulling a sword out of his hilt here, or pulling a sword out of the out of his hilt or whatever, and then he's holding the sword like this, like getting ready to jump after someone, and the sword is coming down like this. Okay? And then he's charging, and then he attacks. Yep. If you do this, the big problem with this is that you're going to read this, okay, 1, okay, 2, doesn't even have a border. Alright, it's very flashy, very cool looking. This third panel over here, you're going to completely miss this, because what you're doing is you got this, and the sword leads the action down into panel 4. So the eye is going to go like this. And it's going to completely block out this panel. You're going to miss it. Because by entering this panel, you have created a directing tangent that is going to put this panel straight down into this panel. And that's going to completely bypass all this. Now, I will admit, it does look cool to have stuff overlapping panels. Or even if it's... Hold on. If you've got a character, you know, standing here like this, and he's got the sword, and the sword comes down. If it's like this, where it just barely intersects, or it barely intersects the panel, it's still intersecting. Even if it's just this tiny little tip of the sword, you're still getting that tangent. You're still getting that breaking of the panel borders, and that's going to completely kill any readability. If you've got a panel over here that's supposed to precede this one, you're not going to see it because you got this. Yep. Breaking the fourth wall should be done sparingly because it's a funny joke. Yeah, the comic characters are aware that they're in a comic. It's funny, but it's also terribly cliche. It is it's a played out joke that everybody's played, I'll say. Because it's something that you should do sparingly just because it's so common for characters to suddenly become aware that they're in a comic strip. So it's not, you know, it's not as clever as a lot of people like to think it is. So yeah. There's also a lot of elements that need to be described specifically in terms of each area. Just to do a quick recap here. Yeah, avoid the fourth wall if you can. Exactly. So these are the basic elements that are all going to be working together to create a readable comic, and they are all as important as all the rest. Panel shapes and borders is specifically referring to the shape, the type of panel that it is. Or if you're even using panels, you're going to have borderless. Borderless panels here. Two-panel layout is the avoiding tangents between panels, avoiding panels that mislead the eye, going, down a page like this and then having a panel over here inexplicably. What the heck is that supposed to be? Word balloons, again, are just, placing the same thing as panel layout. These two are similar, but they're different enough that they need to be considered separately. And then characters and environments is self-explanatory. That's your artwork. That's what's going to carry the dialogue and carry the writing. So all these things need to be considered as equal between each other. Because they are. They really are. They run just as powerfully with each other, and they kind of balance each other out. If one is weak, then it's going to lower the quality of your artwork if the other stuff of your comic, if the others can't balance it out. Because I've seen comics that have amazing writing, but the artwork is so terrible that you look at it and you're just like, ugh. Or stuff that is gorgeously drawn, the most beautifully drawn comics, but then the writing itself is like lackluster, or the word balloons are so poorly laid out that you can't understand what's going on. So it's a mixture of things. Yep. Not muddy. For special word balloons, like, iced word balloons, it depends on the situation or the character. A good example for creative lettering and creative word balloons. Go on to Google or anywhere that you can find an archive of comics, like at a library or something. Look up Pogo. Look up Pogo. It's an old comic that is it lasted probably throughout like the 70s or 80s, I think. But it's ridiculous. The way that the author created the different bits of dialogue, each character, especially in the later strips in the comic's life, each character had their own style of lettering and their own style of word balloon. So just visually, by looking at the dialogue boxes, if you're familiar with the characters, you knew who was talking without even looking at the artwork. Just by seeing the word balloons, you knew, well, that word balloon is melting. That word balloon has, it's falling apart and the words are all sticky. Well, it must be coming from the frog that is covered in slime. Or there's a character who was a religious person, a priest or some such, and his lettering was very like it was like calligraphy. It was fancy, ornate, gorgeous lettering, and it fit the character because he was speaking very proper, and you could tell how his voice sounded just by seeing how the letters looked. Yeah, it's extremely noticeable in later comics. Towards the end of the strip's life, he was doing it almost every panel, and he just went crazy with it, and it was gorgeous, and it was effective. It worked. And a lot of artists since then have done a similar type of thing, where if a particular character speaks a certain way, their word balloons will physically reflect the tone of their voice. That's definitely something you can do, and that might help you define your style of storytelling. So these are all things you need to just keep in mind while you're coming up with what works for you. And that's what this is all about. This is providing, my whole point of doing this tutorial tonight for the past couple hours was just to give you a starting point of practice to where you can take these basic elements and shape them into your own work. And you can take anything I've done here and apply it towards any other major comic, and you can see where they're doing pretty much the same thing. It's a general understanding of the functionality and theory of comics. There's a lot more goes into it, I guess, than a lot of people think that don't consider comics to be, you know, a legitimate art form or what have you. So yeah, that pretty much is everything. I mean, that's everything I have to go for. I would say just start off with however many panels you think is good. I mean, there are comics that are single panels. I mean, look at the Far Side. 99.9% of the Far Side comics were just one panel. And it's one of the greatest comics ever written. So, you know, it's not a rule. You don't have to have 3 panels. You don't have to have 4 panels. It's not better practice to stick to one specific count of comics, because honestly, by limiting yourself to, say, like Garfield, where there's 3 panels, it shoehorns your writing into fitting whatever you're doing into that format. And so with Garfield, you've got the initial setup in the first panel. The second panel is generally, you know, rolling into place for the third panel, which is the punchline. And it's that formula that Garfield follows every single time, almost every single time, that causes it to kind of, you know, work into a sense of monotony between the comics, because they all kind of run together after a while. But yes. So I hope you guys really, you know, hope you guys got something out of it. I hope I explained it clear enough. I didn't, like, you know, ramble or stutter or get, you know, sidetracked with things. So if it helped, I'm glad it helped. So I hope that you guys incorporate this kind of practice, this theory, into your own work, and just go out there and draw. Go out there and work on your comics. That's your homework. It's to get your work done and to become better. Yeah, I recorded this. I recorded the whole thing, so I'm about to actually stop it. So you can watch the replay of this. I've got the whole thing saved up if you ever need to rewatch it to refresh your memory. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to IM me, email me, to leave a comment on this video on the Inking Room website. I have Inking Room on Facebook now. You can leave a comment on there. I mean, I check everywhere just to see if people are commenting on anything. No, I'm not going to grade anything. If you do make a comic and you want me to look at it to give you some feedback on it, by all means, send it my way. But I'm not saying, you know, you guys got to go out and do homework. I'm not giving homework. And this is fun, but, you know, I don't take it that seriously. But yeah, I'll by all means send it my way, and I'll take a look at your stuff, and I'll give you some tips and just what I observe. If you really want me to grade it, I will, but it's not a requirement. But yes. So I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you for stopping by and watching. It's been a couple hours, a good couple hours. And yeah, I will see you guys later in the week. I'm also going to be, it's like, alright. Yeah, I'm gonna be posting I'll be posting this video to the website pretty much right away. And I'll be updating the next schedule of shows. The next one's going to be either Wednesday or Thursday. I need to go talk to Whitney first to find out what she has planned. But I'll be posting a notice as soon as the schedule's up, and yeah. Let me save the recording here, and that'll be it.